Peptides are powerful and often misunderstood.
But we are here to change that.
I'm Dr. Kylie Burton.
And I'm Jessica Bricky.
This is Pep Talk, Peptides Unpacked, science made simple, results made real. And the topic of conversation we've had this week is around sexual wellness. And as soon as I thought about that, and as you've heard in previous episodes, I'm just like, we got to talk to Monica. This is Monica's expertise. Her and I have known each other for several years now. She has seen me at the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. Because I was at the lowest of lows this past summer and I texted Monica and I said, girl, I need help. My husband and I need help. And for someone like me to reach out to say, I need help, that's a big deal. This girl don't need help. She'll power through everything. But when you hit a spot in your life and you're like, I need help, and I would love it if my husband could come along this journey with us and we do this journey together, it will really strengthen you. So Monica is our relationship coach, and she is a relationship coach by certification. She has worked with, I can't tell the names, but a lot of really cool people in the entrepreneur space. And so she understands the space of where entrepreneurs come from in addition to where they sit in their marriage, which is one of the reasons why I was like, I'm not going to go work with anybody else. If I'm going to go work with somebody, it's going to be Monica. She can talk money and not bat an eye. She knows all about entrepreneurship and losing businesses, and she knows all about marriage. So we're good. Welcome aboard, Monica.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And if you are ever, I guess you're in Boise, if you're ever in the Boise area, that's where she's from. She also has a book called Bad Marriage Advice, Myths About Bad Marriages and What to Think Instead. So go grab that on Amazon. But today we're just going to have a simple conversation about sexual wellness and understanding the differences between male and female. Because as this conversation was, we were preparing for this conversation in Andrew and I were discussing last night as we were getting ready for bed, and he's literally what he said to me, why don't you just look at my body and just want it? Because that's how I am with you. Like, one, you're a man, and two, I'm a woman. We're different. So Monica, help us understand.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the questions I'm going to have for our creator when I finally get there. And I'm like, why is this so different? But it is. Arguing with reality is pointless. But men are very visual. You're right. They love to look at our bodies. That's what turns them on. Women are very different. They don't typically tend to be so visual. They are more sensual. In fact, they have a much higher capacity for sexual sensation, enjoying sex, but we as women get more turned on by being the object of the turn on. So seeing our husbands turned on and knowing that we are what is causing that is what turns us on so much, which is why it's really difficult when you start talking about pornography and things like that, because for us to be the object of the turn on for our husbands is really important. And so when we feel like something else might be turning them on, that's what creates a lot of difficulty and disconnection in our sexual relationship.
Interesting. We have been doing a lot of discussion recently this last month about peptides because ultimately that's what our podcast is about. And we have been discussing the peptide PT141, and we have two other products. One is an oral pill, and one is now a nasal spray that has the PT141. It has oxytocin and it has tadalafil. And when I've been discussing this with people in my office, one of the things that I've said, and you can correct me if I'm saying this wrong to them, is that years ago there was the book that came out, Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus, or vice versa, because I might be saying that
That's right. No,
backwards.
you
But the
said it
point
right.
being, we're very opposite. And biologically speaking, I feel like men want to spread their seed naturally, right? That's what they want to do. And women we want to find our mate. We want to procreate. And so all of that sexual like outwardness that we have is geared towards reproduction. And then if we are of a baby making age and we are fortunate enough to be able to have children, the our roles switch. We become nurturers to our children. We are taking care of the house. We are taking care of the things. We're doing all of these things. And so the signaling in our brain kind of changes from going out and mating and doing that stuff with our spouse to now we need to nurture our offspring or these other things. And it becomes, and it almost becomes more, it doesn't become more important, but it almost habitually becomes more important. But the men are still over here going, I just want to do it. I don't really care. I just want to get to business here because it's just different what our approach, like you were saying. When we talk about PT141, this peptide, that one specifically is geared towards brain signaling. So we're talking about sexual motivation and sexual and libido, which are two different things. One is about the desire, wanting to do it, having that sensation, I want to have connection with my partner. And the other is being motivated. I might feel like that would be fun, but I'd rather sleep
Hmm.
or I'd rather, go do the laundry or whatever it is. And there's no motivation to make that connection responsible a priority. What is interesting is this peptide really comes in and changes that brain signaling to turn on our desire again, to turn it back into our spouse, to look at them a little differently. And I don't know if you've worked with this peptide or not with people. I can tell you from my own personal experience because I have been microdosing it a little bit. My husband and I are going to be married 30 years. It's a long time, together 32. And he's still just as interested as he was the day we met. Now, we're older, so maybe not as frequently, but still just equally as interested. I, on the other hand, flat. Don't care, wouldn't care if it ever came my way. I've done the HRT, I've done all the things, right, to try to see if it was a hormone that was influencing it. And it has not moved the needle at all. However, microdosing this peptide changed. I had told Kylie in the middle of the night, I have reached over and wanted to cuddle my husband. I wanted to extend myself to him. And that is not something that I've wanted to do for years. It has been a complete change in my approach or thought toward him. Not because we didn't have a great relationship, because we do. We're great. We're great together. But my thought towards connectivity and sex towards him has definitely been much less than. This peptide has completely changed everything. Are you familiar with it at all? Or does this even make sense to you?
I'm not super familiar with the peptide, but when you're talking, it's a very common scenario that you have a husband with more of a spontaneous sexual desire, meaning that they have a sexual thought and they can drop literally anything and be immediately ready for action. Whereas women
All of us women are nodding our heads like, uh-huh.
Yes, and this is an overgeneralization, but for the most part, women tend to have more of a responsive desire, meaning, first of all, need to, it's more of a slow burn. They can't just drop what they're doing and immediately, it's more of a, they have to be coaxed into this idea of maybe sex would be a good idea. And
Right.
then to feel arousal, it takes more effort on both parts. Like you need a husband and a wife to work together, typically to create arousal in the wife more. So it's less of a spontaneous thing like your husband just walks in, I'm aroused. Whereas
Right.
a woman that has to be a little bit more nurtured. So I can see how maybe the peptide would help create a little bit more of a responsive desire. Maybe you're like, spontaneously feeling that arousal inside of your body, maybe late at night when you're relaxed and you're not like looking at spreadsheets and dirty diapers and kids that need things from you. I can see how that might work.
It's interesting because I also say my husband and I could have a disagreement and I could walk in the other room, drop my clothes, and he'd be like, let's go. The reverse, however, if we have a disagreement, it might take days for me to be like, we're not in the disagreement, we're over it, all is good in the world, but I'm not there.
Yeah.
It's going to take
Typically,
time.
Typically, men feel closer, more connected to their wives through sex, whereas women typically need to feel close and connected to their spouses in order to enjoy sex. So
Right.
it's a little bit different. You're right. So your husband can have an argument and he's, I want to feel close to my wife. This is how it's done. Whereas you're like, I do not want you to come anywhere near me until I feel like we're
Safe.
close and connected.
Yeah.
Exactly. And a lot of that has to do with the biological safety of sex. For it's a very low vulnerability for men, whereas women have the danger of getting pregnant, and it's more like you have to let them into you. And so it's biologically, it's just a little more dangerous. Sex is more dangerous for women. So it is important to feel that connection, that commitment before women can invite sexual arousal. And so I can see how, I don't see how the peptides would just work randomly, but I think you're in your story when you were describing that, when you're in bed with your husband, you're in a committed relationship, you enjoy him, and now you've relaxed and you're not thinking about all of the things on your to-do list. Now your body is more available for arousal. And so, it's easier for you to think, oh, sex might be a good idea now.
I would say it's not going, this is not, using peptides is not going to fix a relationship that
Sure.
has trouble. So we're talking about in a relationship where the partners are hopefully talking about it, or maybe one feels like they're not matching the vibe of their partner. I think that there could be a lot of hurt where if the woman isn't meeting that need, that desire where the husband or the partner is, right? They're not on that same page. That person feels rejected. They feel like they're not enough. There's a lot of like hurt feelings that happen because they're not meeting that partner's needs. And yet the like women oftentimes, I think because we're I don't want to say behind, but we're just not meeting them. There's a lot of hurt feelings around not being on the same page sexually if our signaling isn't coming together. So doing this PT141, first of all, it's not instant. So if you are doing just this peptide, it takes hours before there is an interest. We spoke with somebody a week ago where the man described it as he had this whole body reaction. So they did it together. They were in their 60s. They both did this peptide in the afternoon, knowing that night was their date night. And he said, I was watching television and all of a sudden this thought in my brain started in my head. It came through my whole body, and I was like, oh, let's go. But it wasn't unlike using the little blue pill, where that's a blood flow issue. He said it wasn't like that at all. It started in my mind. It started there and then came through my whole body. She had a different reaction, but still similarly, that it was still slower, not quite the same as him. They have a great relationship. And she talked about there was a sensation again in her body, but also in her genitals, just from this PT141. But again, it started up here, and they were able to meet on the same page because they were able to talk about it, because they were open to this. This is a good relationship with good foundations, but there's a missing piece. They're missing that connection that they have to each other. It was pretty interesting how this is working as far as good, healthy relationships that are missing something with each other.
Yeah, and I could see how, like, I can see how it would be problematic that what you described, it would be best case scenario. This is how it works. It could be problematic in that a lot of the couples that I see, typically it's a husband dragging a wife in because he wants more sexual intimacy. And the kind of frame in which that always has been in the marriage is that the wife is the problem, that she's broken or missing something somehow. And if we can just fix her, then this would all work better. And so definitely, I would say that this could be problematic in a scenario like this if we're expecting that this peptide is just going to fix the problem. So typically, or not typically, the reality is you're never going to create a good sexual relationship when the wife feels like it is her problem to fix, or, her responsibility to take care of her husband's sexual needs. So whenever you come in with that frame, a good sexual relationship is where both partners feel like they're getting something from the interaction, where the wife feels like sex is a safe place where she can go, where she can be herself, where she can be cared for by somebody who loves her. And so if you're missing any of those elements, and you're going to try to make up for it with this peptide, I can see that being problematic.
Yeah.
However, if you are in the right frame, you have a good relationship, and you're like, just physically, our bodies aren't quite firing in the way that we would like to be able to enjoy this, I can see how that would be super, super helpful.
Exactly. I would agree. Would you say that there are different stages? I'm going to use the example of a healthy relationship right now with a husband and wife, but would you say that in your work, you're seeing different stages of different ages of life, right? So you have your young women that are, again, out maybe looking for their mate, they're looking for whoever their life partner is going to be, and they're expressing themselves sexually maybe a little bit differently than they might be postpartum, right? Now the kids, which might be different than that in between stage. The kids are older. I haven't hit menopause yet, but the kids don't need me in the same way. And then postmenopausal. Do you see too that all of those different stages of life are having a big impact on the relationship, even if it's a healthy relationship, as far as they get along, there's not like any big crises going on, if I'm asking that
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I understand what you're saying. For men, it's like a steady, they're interested in sex, and that's just how they are. But for women, we have a very different, especially like I said, women like to be the subject of arousal. And so if you've ever maybe had this experience in your younger years, we can, as women, can turn ourselves on pretty well. Like sometimes I'll be undressing or something like that when I was younger and had a really nice body, or now, if I've been working out, like I'm undressing to get ready for the shower or something, and I'm like, dang, I look good, right? Like I can turn
Yeah.
myself on in those cases, right?
Yeah.
Postpartum, especially if your body has changed, you're nursing, you see it a little bit more utilitarian. It's not I look in the mirror and I'm like, dang, I look good. It's I've been taking care of children. I'm just exhausted. So yeah, there's definitely going to be the ebbs and flows. And then when we can take care of ourselves a little bit better, we have maybe teenagers, kids that don't require so much physically of us as mothers, it's easier to get back into that finding who we are, feeling more confident. Like confidence is really sexy for both men and women, right? So if I feel very confident, I feel sexy. I can turn myself on. And my husband being turned on by my confidence or whatever also turns me on, right? And then we get a little bit older. I remember when I very first got into doing this, I read there was all these studies that talked about women in their 60s and 70s and like having the best sex of their lives. And I'm like, why on earth would we have to wait until we're 60 or 70 to
Right.
be having the best sex of our lives? Like, I want to do it now. Like, I don't want to be wrinkly and having the also like why do I have to wait that long? So I've always been like very super interested in what creates that, like living for my own, like out of my own values and integrity. I've gotten much better at that. Like I don't care who's having a thought or an opinion. I'm good. As we get less and less inhibited and worried about what other people think, that also creates more like at least mental capacity for us to be able to just able to enjoy our husbands' bodies and less in our heads about how are we performing, what are they thinking about us, what is their experience like right now. Because honestly, like the pinnacle of sex, like the orgasm is it's actually a very selfish moment. Like we cannot, in order for a woman to orgasm, we cannot be thinking about anything else. We can't be thinking about our to-do list. We can't be thinking about our spouse and like what they're experiencing. We have to be fully focused on the sensations in our own body. And so I wonder if there's an aspect of that peptide that helps us just recognize the sensations that we're feeling and makes it a little bit more of an experience which makes it's interesting because people will come to me and I'll ask them about the sex that they're having. And a lot of times women will be like, yeah, I can take it or leave it,
It
whatever.
happens, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I can't make you like melted ice cream. I can't, if it's not good sex, I can't make you want it more. And being able to experience like just a full body orgasm is going to make you naturally want more of that.
Understood. Going back to what you said about the 60s and 70s,
Right.
I am older than a lot of people that I'm around. I'm going to be 55 this year, and you're 100%
I
right.
imagine that just gets better than 46.
With every single decade, there are less F's to give. They just
Yes.
are. You circle the fences a little bit more. When I was in my 20s, I needed to be friends with everybody. I needed to be involved in all the things. I wanted to be out. And with every decade, my circle got tighter. I didn't need to have everybody with me at all times for all things. Not that I don't love everybody, I just didn't need that anymore. And I really didn't give cares about if somebody didn't like it or whatever. It's not that I don't care. I do care. I don't want to hurt people or any of that kind of stuff. But it's so freeing with every decade. So now to be in my 50s and approaching my mid 50s, which God, I can't
You're
believe I'm
getting real
saying
close to
that.
those 60s and 70s. I'm excited to hear about how that goes for you.
It's wild. That's what I'm saying. But that is so true. So there is a lot of freedom in the way that we just don't care anymore. And if we can teach that to, my goal is if I could give that to younger people, if we can be more open and talk about that's going to save so much heartache because
Good
there's so much
sex
to
is
experience.
about freedom.
Yeah.
Like that is the key. It's like the secret that people just don't understand is if we feel obligated to show up for sex, it's never going to be good sex for either party. But if we feel free, like it is our choice, like we are here, we are free to be ourselves, we are unencumbered with, like you said, just thoughts of what other people are thinking, especially our sexual partner, then that is like the seeds of a really great sex life.
So the peptide therapy, I can't speak highly enough about how it's changed my thought, even my dreams, my daily thought, like all of it. It is completely, it is wild because you can only do it a couple times a week and it is almost clockwork. I do the peptide
Mm.
and for 3 days I feel a certain way and think a certain way and I'm super interested and then that kind of wears down and I'm like, oh, wow, that's wild. And there's different ones because different things have different approach, but I'm just talking about the straight PT141 peptide is really incredible. Let's set that aside though for a second because this is the work that you do. If you have a couple that's coming to you and they're presenting with not matching up. He's interested, she's not, but she want to, right? Which is what this the PT141 really is helping you with the want to part, right? So that signaling is really important. But are there exercises? So let's just say somebody's doing that. Now they're having the thoughts, they're feeling the things, but now they're so far gone in the relationship or there's been so much disconnect. How would somebody work their way back to their partner, even if they're having the thoughts, if the signaling is happening because of a peptide or not? How do they
Mhm.
work their way back to their partner? Are there some steps that people can start to take?
Yeah, it really depends on the level of disconnection, like how they would describe how they're feeling in the relationship. So some couples will just come in and say, "We love each other, we're good partners, we just feel disconnected." And so for that kind of couple, I would suggest spending more time together. Spend 20 minutes a day just nurturing that connection, talking to each other, not about how was your day, but more like tell me about what you're learning. What gets you excited in the middle of the day? What are you nervous about? What can I do to make your life easier for each other? Like those types of learning about each other's inner worlds and creating that connection. I call those daily connections. And then bringing back date night once a week, 3 hours a week. Get back into that fun, curious dating energy where you see these couples so this is probably the next level of couple. If they're like, you know what, we don't talk very well. We don't communicate very well. We have just a really hard time talking about different topics, right? You see those couples in a restaurant and they're not talking to each other, not because they've run out of things to talk about, because if you're curious about your partner, you'll never, ever run out of things to talk about. It's because typically they've got a list of topics that they can't talk about because they'll end up in an argument or upset with each other or something like that. So those are things that we can work through, like definitely learning skills to be able to talk about those difficult topics and return to being able to have difficult conversations and come out on the other side feeling more connected rather than we just can't talk about this. So that's like maybe level 2 is really going back and talking about what are the resentments that you guys are carrying? What are the things that we can learn how to do to be able to talk about those hard topics and connect more deeply? That would be like level 2. And then level 3, I would say, and this goes along with my 3% rule. I say 20 minutes a day,
I
3
was
hours
gonna
a
say,
week.
this is your 3% rule. We had to start doing this ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. And I like how this matches up. And then the third level would be 1 week out of the year. Go somewhere away from all of the responsibilities that you carry day to day. Get away from your business, get away from your budget, get away from your children, and go just love on each other.
Be a couple.
Relax. Yes, be a couple and enjoy each other. And I guarantee if you pair that with those peptides, you're going to have a really good time. And then you got to be able to carry that place of peace that you've created together back in your day-to-day relationship. So I think that would be like the 3 levels of where I would start. But then as
Yeah.
far as exercises, I would say if you went on vacation and you had maybe you took the peptides and you just had a really great experience and you're like, we got to figure out how to do this every week. We've got to bring that I always talk about sexual energy as creative energy, right? Like it is the power literally to create life, but also when you're connecting on all cylinders with your partner and you're having great orgasms, I guarantee in your everyday life, you are more creative. You have more access to that part of your brain that can just do and create and become something awesome, right? So if you're like, okay, we felt it, we've got it, we want to bring it back into our lives, like, how are we going to do that? I would say make space, make time on your calendar, like literally put it on your calendar nights in which you get the kids to bed and you take off all your clothes and you lay naked in the bed together and you just lay there and see what happens. But you've got to schedule it. Some people have an adverse reaction to scheduling intimacy.
Why is that? Because you do hear that advice a lot. I guess maybe when we're young, because things just happen so spontaneously and naturally, and you want it so much when you're young that you're hoping that's going to come back into your world. But really, scheduling is, even for myself, like the idea of I have to put it on the calendar, but it
Oh,
seems to be that's consistent advice.
yeah, I would say for long-term committed couples, the couples who have a great sex life, they're not the ones that just can just have sex on the kitchen counter, like spontaneously in the middle of the day, right? That's cool. But really long-term committed couples are the ones who understand that sex should be a priority, right? That they prioritize it, that they go, you know what, this is good for us. It's like going to the gym. Like sometimes it's like hard to get there, but once you're there, you're like, this is so
I
good
love
for
that.
me. I'm so glad we did this, right? But also, it's let's give our bodies the opportunity to do what they naturally do. And in order to do that, you've got to prioritize it, which means get it on the schedule, and then lay there naked next to each other and let your bodies do what they naturally do.
That's great advice. It really is. But it gives context to the whole scheduling thing too, because you hear it, but I don't know that I personally ever really understood the why behind it. But not really.
I
Is
have a
that?
rule of thumb with it too. I don't, Monica knows this. I don't like the word schedule. I don't like the word routine. And so for me, it's just like, okay, one night a week. And pick the night. And I'm just gonna make it happen. And then going back to what you had said earlier was to be curious about your partner. You'll know more about this next week when we talk. But I have made a goal last night, like rather than walking to bed after a very rough day and going to bed in still those rough feelings, I just was like, okay, I'm just gonna start asking him questions about his day. I want to get curious about what he does on the daily and how stressful his life is. And it was like the more I will allowed him to just talk, the more the guard went down. So I think that's something that us as humans, we get caught up in, is we want to always tell our story and have our say. And then, wait a second, the easiest way to come closer connected is to be more curious about the other person.
Yeah, and the whole idea of taking your clothes off, it's very vulnerable. Can you take your clothes off and just calm yourself in the presence of your partner, not thinking about, oh, is he focused on that freckle or do I smell bad? What is he thinking? And it's like being able to just like literally take off all the barriers between you and just lay there, and can you calm yourself and just really just allow yourself to feel into that moment? That is really special.
Appreciate this conversation. Is certainly shedding a lot of light on things that I've heard, but it brings more context to the why we need to do those things or why we're operating the way that we do. It helps. I know this conversation is going to help a lot of people that are listening in that want to be more connected with their partner. Maybe they don't know where to start. They don't know who to go to. If that was the case, besides your book, which again, what is the title of your book?
Bad marriage advice. Debunking myths that will make you miserable and what to do instead.
I love that. So aside from the book, where, if a couple has decided, okay, we want to get a little help in this arena, where would they seek out help?
Yeah, I have a lot of free resources, namely my podcast that I produce every single week. It's called Secrets of Happily Ever After. So typically it's just me talking about these things that I talk about with my clients. And also I have guests on the podcast. So that's a great free resource if you're just getting started and dipping your toes and trying to figure this out. But you can also learn how to work with me at my website, which is monicatanner.com.
And you can work with people virtually. So you don't have to, you're not, yeah. So it doesn't matter where you are, Monica can be available to you.
Our
I think
session
I'm
is
good,
on
Carly.
Wednesdays at 10 o'clock. That's when we meet with Monica,
Yeah,
and
time slot
she's
is
helped us through
taken.
some rough roads. But I feel like as I'm thinking about this conversation, is like we named the podcast episode Tips for Greater Connection with Your Spouse. Our conversation as a summary is like tips for greater connection with your spouse, no matter what your situation currently is. Whether it be the 3% rule, whether it be the peptides, whether it be like, hey, you're just simply, you start asking them questions about their life and listen, about their day, about their stresses, about all those things, and just let them talk. Like I said, it really brought his guard down. Even though I could have interjected a million times, I was just like, no, I'm going to just listen and I'm going to let him share his frustrations and his stresses. And before we knew it, the entire energy of the space had changed. So I just want to encourage all the listeners out there, if you need it, reach out to Monica, grab her book from Amazon, go to her podcast, Secrets of Happily Ever After. And we are sure grateful to have these conversations this month. This is a topic that needs to be addressed, and we're so grateful for you listening. Jess, where can they find you?
As always, they can find me on Instagram. That is going to be Jess B underscore LMT underscore NC. You can certainly find me on my website too, b2bwithjess.com. And if you want peptides, you can hit the peptide page.
Don't worry, 2-year-old Chloe's joined us today. So go to Jess's website, hit the peptide page. My website's drkylieburton.com. If you're looking at peptides, if you're looking at joining the business side of it, you can get started there. If somebody sent you here, please go back and grab the peptides from them. If a practitioner or somebody specifically sent you here. But this is Pep Talk, Peptides Unpacked.